Another large increase, if you come down through here, the next one I look at is under 2100 student support services, purchase professional and technical services. That is a student liability insurance issue. And it goes, basically doubles in the amount. And also in that one, something you need to understand is there's a $600 outstanding PO from last year. It's still sitting out there, so that's why we've got that amount budgeted in this year to cover that PO, just in case it clears. And I'll have to find out more detail about what that PO is actually for.
How about the 0500?
0500. That's the student liability insurance.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, sorry.
Where it goes from 39 to 50.
Okay. I know one of the things Mr. Kingston pointed out last one was 0600, I believe.
0600 is supplies.
56,000 for this. That was the $37 increase in the Section 6 allocation.
Section 6
was
money, they give us a
$56,000.
formula and says, at a minimum, not a minimum, you have to give 100, it's basically right at $100 per student for instructional, to support instructional supplies. It's SBDM allocation. For whatever reason, 2 or 3 years ago, you all were given the minimum. You were given the $100 per student. Last year, you gave the 137 or 136, whatever the amount used to be. And I guess it was the board's intent to throw more money into the classrooms for supplies and et cetera. So that's where that increase came in.
It actually was across the board like that, but anyway. 2200, how about the 0280? Raised from 105, or went from 105 to 120.
We were at 120 previously. Your actual expenditures last year were 105, and so I'm not sure if we saved some money, but just to be safe, make sure we don't bust that. We're budgeting 120.
That's given to us by the state,
Yeah, that's
Mr.
on
Murray,
behalf.
and that's only in and out. That's a in as a revenues, and then it's out on each line item.
That
and
goes to help cover
It's basically
liability
the same
insurance or
amount that we did
the
last
workers' comp and
Health insurance.
It's whatever the
Okay.
state pays.
Yeah,
It's
whatever
the
the state
state's
pays.
portion of their payments for us. It goes in as,
retirements.
if you look on Mr. Murray on page 2, very bottom line, 3,900 on behalf state contribution. That budgeted amount of $2,280,179, that is disseminated throughout your budget in the expenditures in that 0280 amount in the expenditures. So it's the exact same amount. So it doesn't increase or decrease your budget at all. I just budgeted an amount that we had in there as an actual the year before.
You'll see it anywhere where there's
So
a
that you have an
salary
amount
issue.
in there. So that doesn't
Mr.
increase or
Hubert.
decrease.
Sir.
You feel this budget is actually fairly strong, although probably a bit conservative.
Again, I'm concerned that our expenditures are outpacing our revenues. We look at the contingency fund is sitting right at 7%, and the state average is 11%. But at this point, with the raises that we're given and our current situation, I don't see that there's a whole lot else we can do, except for start planning for next year and how we're going to decrease this budget and get it down to where our expenditures and our revenues are at least equal, and so we're not losing ground each year.
I know we don't know it yet, but aren't we supposed to get some of those mandated raises paid for by the state?
The current plan is they will give us an increase in SEEK revenue for next year, but we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the SEEK increase will not cover the mandated raise. I mean, they're just not going to equal out. So if we have to give this, I'll tell you, we sat here for 2 hours today talking about this. If we do not see an increase in revenues next year, and we have to give this mandatory raise, I will have to cut about $500,000 out of this budget for us to be at 2% contingency. And that's it. Now we know there will be increases. We know there will be an increase of SEEK. We know property tax will go up a little bit. I know that we won't probably only have $800 or $800,000 left. So we're probably still gonna be looking at around 300,000 reductions, and we'll have to start looking now, figure out where we can pull that from.
And that's my frustration, why we didn't have another meeting to dive into these expenditures. Because you're talking, taking $500,000 out, the only way that's gonna come out is to affect teachers, and that's gonna take teachers' jobs.
You're right.
And that's why I'm so frustrated, why we should have dove into this year.
August would have been way too late, because you would have had to notify teachers of reductions, or
No, I'm not.
prior to, you're not gonna cut $300,000 out of this budget anyplace other than salaries.
Every little bit helps. I mean,
It will.
we spend a lot on food and entertainment in this district that I've sat in your office and already went over with you. There was $20-something thousand right there. You start adding up those 20,000 here on this and 20, but that's the thing, when we keep kicking the can down the road, and with all due respect, I don't mean this towards you. This isn't your horse, so to speak. You weren't driving this thing, so, but the frustration comes, I've been a board member for almost 2 years now, and this is the thing, we keep coming in here and it's the same thing. If we don't dive into these expenditures and literally get to it, you're right, we're gonna start cutting teachers, and that's not fair next year, the next year, because we didn't sit in here as a board and do this right. And it's not fair to you as the new superintendent either, quite frankly.
Honestly, if I had to cut $300,000, the only place to do that is to reach into salaries.
And that's gonna affect you and what your obviously goal is, raise the test scores and everything else.
Yeah, the good news, if you saw the email I put out about budget goals for, I think what the board needs to do is adopt, when we start building next year's budget is, what do you want to see in this budget? I threw out a number of 65% spent directly on instruction, and through some calculations we did today, we're pretty close to that right now. I said 80% on salaries, and we're about right at 82% right now. So we're not too far off reasonable expenditures in those areas.
We're at 82%?
82, about 82% of our total salaries, or our total budget, goes to salaries.
So did we go down this year? Because I thought we were hovering over about 85, 86.
No, we've never been that high.
Never been that high.
Nope.
Now,
Well, that's salaries
if we
and
left
benefits
on
and benefits.
behalf payments in there, would we have been
Well,
higher or
on
lower? I
behalf
can't
doesn't
remember.
count, that's an in and an out. That doesn't really, you don't count on behalf as budgeted salaries. If you do a percentage of salaries, and the reason that's actually gone even up to 82% is the state has increased the KTRS match, and the CERS match has gone up, and also raises and everything else. So that affects your salaries and benefits together. So, usually we've been around 79, 80%. This year we're right around 82% in this current budget. But we've also had massive increases in KTRS match and CERS, and we've added raises in this budget, so that all increases proportionally. But that's, 82% is what it is in this current budget.
I agree, we need to start working on next year's budget probably immediately. But the point of this meeting is to look at this year's budget, and it's not going to change in the next 5 hours. I would make a motion that we approve the working budget and move forward, and start working on getting next year figured out, both expenses and revenues.
And I appreciate that motion, but at the same time, I mean, the finance just sat here and told us, well, this isn't concrete, why would we wait till next year? I mean, if there's one, how about 2300 district administration support, 0500, that raised from 40,000 to 82,000, what is that?
Which page, sir?
Page 4.
District admin and support, which one?
0500. Other
0500.
purchase services, it was 40,736.18, it's up to 82,640. That's over a 50% raise.
Any fun?
No.
Hold on, I'll find out what's in there.
Do you know, Mr.
You know what, I
James?
think part of that is, district, I think that's, our insurance. I think that's where Mr. Murray, the 82,000 and the 500 is where our KISS assessment went to. There's
I think, I
37,000.
don't wanna, I think, I
Okay, I'll
say
look
that
it
with
up right this,
respect.
here, I'll tell you what,
No,
Mr.
I can
Murray,
tell
I
you
will
that-
look it up right this second, but I'm pretty sure that's property,
I can tell you
And
0600.
that's 37 thousand in Kisbit.
That's what I looked at today, because it went from 20,000 to
That was my next one.
78. Part of that is going to be the new time clock system we were looking at purchasing. So if, that's someplace we could save some money, we could do away with the
We're
time
gonna-
clock system.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at a budget like that, I mean, what's this time clock system going to save us?
The old, I'm not sure exactly what's wrong with the old one.
I can answer that.
Okay.
Our current payroll software is running on a Windows 03 server, which is the oldest one that we have, and updating it could cause the software to crash. So I have been in contact with Cronus, and they are currently giving us some quotes. The one they gave us was cloud-based, where they would store all of our information and it wouldn't be on our server. She's in the process of getting us a quote for a system that we would store here on our server and run the software. One of those requires new machines, one of those doesn't. So I'm in just the research stages of looking at those quotes to see how we can get our payroll software updated, but yes, save some money.
And again, it's a budgeted amount, so if we find something cheaper, or we decide not to do it at all, then that would roll over back into our contingency. And
I guess my question is this point, but that obviously is gonna come back before the board before it gets approved, correct? Even though it's in the budget, are we as a board saying we're gonna go ahead and approve, because we approved this budget, we're approving that time clock? And I'm not saying I wouldn't.
by approving this
Would
budget,
you
you're
get-
not approving any particular expenditure. You're approving a amount to be spent in that, and then that falls back on us to determine the day-to-day use of those funds.
Chad, you're putting the parameters out there with this budget that your management has to work within.
Understand.
And you, as the superintendent has repeatedly put on his shoulders here tonight, and he's responsible for it, and he's laying it out pretty clear for you. If he doesn't make some moves, he's gonna have a contingency problem. Y'all get below 2%, I can tell you from past experience, we'll all make a trip down to Frankfurt, stay forward. And I've been there with the Carroll County Board.
That's what I'm hoping not to
I
happen.
understand.
I've read
So-
all the stories and all,
I
I
know.
mean, they're out there all over the place right now.
I know.
And the reason I'm asking these questions, I understand everything you're saying, but we bought a lawnmower. Now, I would like some information on this lawnmower because it was a big ticket item. Now, again, I'm not saying we didn't need the lawnmower, but I've asked for an invoice for it, nobody's came up with it. Why? Why can't we get an invoice for the lawnmower?
This is the first I'm hearing you ask for an invoice. Again, if you all will ask me for things, I will ensure that you get them. I mean,
Well, this was prior to you coming.
Okay.
So I'm not throwing this on you by no means, but what's the deal with that lawnmower? Has it not been paid for? Who approved it? What happened?
Who did you ask for the invoice from?
nope. That's what I just said, Mr. Mayor. Nobody, once you all approve this budget, we're not supposed to bring every single expenditure back to you all. Now, if we're gonna bust your budget, and in the purchase of that lawnmower was gonna throw a line item over what you budgeted in it, then we would have to come to you and say, we wanna purchase a lawnmower, it's gonna throw us over in budget item 3, and we need to move funds from 4 to 3 to cover it. Here's how it's gonna affect the whole budget, but I don't think the approval, now you should have seen an invoice for it when you did the bill, when you paid the bills each month.
That's all I'm asking, because that would, I mean, I'm not sitting here trying to micromanage by no means, but I would think, I mean, did it slip through? Was it in those bills?
Oh, yes, I'm sure it was, but it was paid. It
Could
was
you
in
get
those
me a
bills.
copy of it real quick?
Sure.
Wait, I'll tell you who we paid it to.
Because that was one of the
Because I have
things,
not seen it.
that was one of the line items
I didn't know it was
looked
ever
at.
asked for.
Yeah, I
That was
know,
one-
we
I
asked
didn't know
for
it was
the
ever
invoice.
That's one of the
Or
line items I
I
looked at from 2 years ago to last fiscal year. One of the line items jumped up a significant amount like that, and I said, why did it go up last year? And that's what they said, it was the lawnmower that was purchased out of
Operations
that.
and
It was,
maintenance. Okay. Let me find it.
it's on page 5, 2600,
Okay.
0700 property. You'll see that one year
Yeah.
we didn't spend anything, prior year we didn't spend anything. Last year we spent $25,000, and this year we're budgeting $2,000. And I said, well,
That's
what was
who
the big
told you that?
expense? Huh?
So 25,000 we spent on it?
Well, that wasn't just the lawnmower, but I
No,
said,
there was also-
why did it go
No,
up? Why did our expenses in that
There's
area go
over-
up?
Okay,
Well,
13,653.69
And one of the reasons it went up
Brown's
so much
Farm
was because of the
Implement.
lawnmower was in there.
13,000, and it was paid in, let's see, Connie.
What was it, 13?
2014. We had an invoice for $13,653.69. And I can tell you the purchase order was to,
What month was that paid?
May 29th of 2014. May 19th is the check date.
What would have been in May's bills?
It would have been on the
Yeah,
ones that were
maybe.
paid on May 19th, check number 38,710.
Hey, can I just bring up a point of order? Maybe it's not mine. I think we had a motion on the table.
You got a
Yes.
motion.
Yeah,
So-
two things, I think,
So
real quick.
if there's no
One-
second, it's just if there's no
Well-
second for it, we need to kill it and move to the next, continue the discussion, I guess is what I'm saying.
I will
Of
second
course,
that
there's gonna
motion.
be a second.
Okay, we have a second. Any more discussion on this year's budget?
See, now I think we continue the discussion. I just didn't want to leave that
Point
motion
of order,
hanging out
that's
there.
right.
We can continue the discussion now, because I've got some other things on here that, I do have some concerns with. For one, let me point out 2,400, line item 2,400. If you look at the total amount there, we're down, we're budgeting about $79,000 less total budget in that line item, okay? 2,400, on page 5, 2,400 school admin support. Look at the total amount of expenditures last year versus what we're budgeting, it's about $79,000 less.
What line item, I'm sorry?
It's the total for 2,400
Oh,
school admin. If you look at those two totals, it's a lot less, $90-some thousand less. Here's why that one concerns me. We're gambling on that one because we're gonna assume that the high school isn't gonna fill the dean of students position this year. That they're gonna continue the year without that position until they find a principal. We're working off a big assumption there. Because you, as a board, gave that position to the high school in their SBDM allocation. So we're assuming a little risk right there, because if they were to fill that position tomorrow, that throws about another $50,000 into that position.
And I should know this, and I'll show my ignorance here. When we have a salary schedule like that, and there is those positions sitting there, even though they're not open, filled, whatever, I mean, should the money still not be in the budget, or am I wrong on that?
Well, you're asking two different things, I think. The salary schedule, you approve within that range. Okay, that doesn't necessarily deal
Put
with.
it in the budget.
Right.
Okay, and that's.
Okay? So, if that answers it. And then the allotment he's talking about is a separate issue altogether.
Exactly.
So we're kind of gambling a little bit that they're not gonna fill that position right away, and that we'll be able to see some savings in that item that, we'd be either moved to contingency or allocated somewhere else. So that it's a little bit of risk in that particular spot, but have to see how that plays out. And if should that happen, and that's obviously gonna throw a line up item significantly over budget, then we would come back to you all and say, we need to amend that budget, we're gonna have to put some money back in there, we're gonna have to move it, from the time clock to cover that, or from someplace. We'd have to come back and have that discussion if we're gonna alter the budget. Let's see.
Any more discussion, or are we ready to vote?
As far as Fund 1, and here's something I learned today too. Just because an expense was in one budget category last year doesn't necessarily mean it will be in the same budget category this year. And that's because KDE plays around with these munis codes a little bit and says, you were able to put these expenses in this budget code, now you need to move them to this budget code. So you do see a little bit of fluctuation because of that, but the biggest expense we've got in here is this increase in salaries, and we know it's even gonna get worse next year, so.
All right, if there's no more discussion, I want to call a vote to the motion on the floor about approving the working budget. All those in favor? I can't see you, Ms. Tanya. Okay, and then I also, have my hand raised. All those opposed? Mr. Murray, working budget passes. Mr. Huber, I would ask that, from this board that you work hard to get us in a better position next year so we don't have to raise taxes and still take care of our kids.
Roger that, sir. Hey, just as a note on this meeting format, this works for emergencies. No way would I say we want to make this a regular habit, because, it is a little more limiting. And if we are going to conduct the meeting in this format, we've got to have, I was going to say 48 hours of notice so we can make sure everybody knows and we got the notice posted. Because I think changing it from a normal format with everyone present to a video conference, I think we need to put that notice out to the public that we're going to do that. So, I mean, I don't think it requires that by law.
No.
But I think it would be a good practice and gets back to, the transparency that Mr. Murray was talking about, and that, if constituents want to know if you're going to be here or not, so they can come listen to what you're going to say. But I don't think it has taken away from the meeting having you there. You're on that end. Do you feel like you're still in the loop, or?
I do, but I'd much rather be there. This is not a good way to have a meeting. It works for an emergency, but I do not want to make this a practice.
Alex, let me ask you a question from a legal standpoint. You are in the business center there at the Holiday Inn at that 1935 DeKalb Avenue in Sycamore, Illinois. Is that correct?
I am, and if you want to look at the video screen, I am in public lobby.
Okay, and so it's open, accessible to the public there.
Yeah, people are walking by because I think I'm crazy. People have been walking by.
Okay, very good. Very good.
At least they just thank you.
Okay, guys, if I get a motion to adjourn?
What constituted emergency between this meeting and the meeting on the 22nd?
The fact that we had the budget deadline today to get this into KDE. And I'll take some of the blame for that. Because two things on this that I've learned. One, there is a budget deadline, September 31st or 30th, whatever today is. And two, every other organization I've been a part of, when you have a quorum, a majority of that quorum rules. So when we left here the other day, 2-1 vote, I thought we had a majority of the quorum, I thought we were good. Your board policy actually says for any action, we have to have a majority of the full board vote for that. And abstention votes count as a favorable vote when that happens, according to the board policy. So part of that was ignorance of policy and procedure on my part.
Well, I just want to say this, I don't think it's fair to myself or any other board member to ask for documents and not get them, and then it constitutes an emergency to pipe someone in via video. Obviously, you all knew, because I did not get the documents I requested, that you were not getting my vote for this to pass, so therefore, we knew we had it been misretained, so that's why he's piped in.
Which document did you not get?
August 4th meeting.
The videos that you requested?
No. What was the budget for personnel and what we spent on personnel last year? That was a good number that could be gotten. There was a sheet talked about for each employee in their pay and name the amount that she had in her hand and was going to give out, but when I asked for it, she said that was her copy, she would give me a copy. Those two things there,
I just thought you were talking about the two videos you requested.
No, absolutely
Because I know, I'm really not sure why it takes so long to get them, the videos from the camera to a disk or to the server, but
The only reason it took so long last time, because Stephen was out sick one day, and then the next day he had a meeting.
I
And
have not once mentioned anything about being upset not to get the video.
okay, I'm just double checking.
No, that's.
we
not
put
what
them
I-
on there a few days later, and then Chad got his
Because,
copies
in
today.
all due respect, they were online, I just personally can't get them watched at my house because of my internet connection. So I can't sit and say that that's someone's fault in this office
look.
because of my problem.
Well, the September 22 one's not on or the last one we had, it's not online yet, right?
September 22nd is online.
Yes, it
It's
is.
online already?
Yes, it
Already
is.
It
launched
wasn't on there the other day. Okay. Good, we're getting them on there faster, that's good.
I move that we adjourn, Mr. Page.
I'll second.
Not sure you heard.
Did you catch that, Alex?
No, I didn't, I'm sorry.
Mr. Wilson moved to adjourn, Mr. Murray second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous, have a great night.
Thank you.